Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're tackling Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You sent over some sections you were curious about, and frankly, this book is one of those classics that I think we all grapple with at some point, so I'm excited to dig in.
It is fascinating how relevant this book remains, even decades after its publication.
Totally.
Clearly, it struck a chord with people looking to navigate the complexities of life, work, and everything in between.
I started reading it and immediately felt like, okay, this is a road map, but it's a long one, it's dense. What are the absolute must-know nuggets here? The things that really shift your perspective?
I think the core of Covey's work lies in understanding the difference between what he calls the personality ethic and the character ethic.
Okay.
It's a fundamental distinction that underpins everything else he discusses.
All right, let's unpack this. Personality ethic versus character ethic. What's the difference?
Think of the personality ethic as focusing on techniques, appearances, those quick fixes to try and look successful. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper issue.
So it's like I could learn a bunch of communication tricks, but if I'm not genuinely empathetic, those tricks will only get me so far, right?
Exactly. The character ethic, on the other hand, dives into those deeper waters. It's about aligning ourselves with timeless principles: integrity, fairness, honesty. These are the bedrock of lasting effectiveness, not just superficial skills.
So it's less about faking it till you make it and more about genuine inner growth.
Yeah,
But how do you actually apply that? The character ethic seems pretty abstract.
it is abstract, and that's where the 7 habits come in. They're practical applications of these principles. But before we even get there, we need to talk about paradigms. Covey spends a good chunk of time on this, and for good reason.
Here's where it gets interesting.
Right.
Paradigms. I know it's more than just a buzzword, but explain it to me like I've never heard it before.
Imagine you're using a map to navigate a new city. That map is your paradigm. It's your mental model of how things work, your assumptions, your perceptions. But what if that map is outdated or just plain wrong? You'll end up lost no matter how hard you try.
He uses that optical illusion as an example, right? The one with the young woman and the old woman in the same image.
Precisely. Two people can look at the same exact thing and see totally different realities based on their pre-existing paradigms.
Wow.
It's not just about seeing is believing, it's more like believing is seeing.
Okay, that's a huge point. So if our paradigms are the maps we use in life, and those maps can be flawed, how do we even begin to make sure we're using the right ones?
That's the million-dollar question. Covey's point is that we need to become aware of our paradigms, actively examine them, be willing to challenge our assumptions. If our paradigms are built on inaccurate information or limiting beliefs, it doesn't matter how hard we work. We're using the wrong tools for the job.
All right, that makes a ton of sense. So step one is self-awareness,
Right.
recognizing those mental maps we're carrying around.
Right.
What's next? Is that where the first habit kicks in?
You got it. The first habit, be proactive, is all about taking responsibility for our own paradigms and choices. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
Okay, be proactive. It sounds simple enough, but I have a feeling there's more to it than just taking initiative. What's the deeper meaning here?
It's about recognizing that between any stimulus and your response, there's a space. And in that space, you have the power to choose. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react.
I'm already feeling empowered. But let's be real, there are some things you just can't control no matter how positive your mindset is. How does Covey address that?
He talks about Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor. Frankl found that even in the most horrific circumstances imaginable, he still had the power to choose his attitude, his inner response. That's incredibly powerful.
Wow, that's a heavy example, but it really drives the point home. So even amidst chaos, we have some agency. But how do we apply that to everyday life?
Covey introduces these two circles: your circle of concern and your circle of influence. The circle of concern is everything you worry about, even stuff you can't control. The circle of influence is what you can actually impact.
So proactive people spend more time in their circle of influence taking action rather than just worrying.
Exactly. It's about focusing your energy on solutions, being resourceful, and using proactive language. Instead of saying, I have to do this, say, I choose to do this. It seems small, but it subtly shifts your mindset from reactive to empowered.
Use your R and I. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's about remembering your resourcefulness and initiative. I like it. So we're being proactive, focusing on what we can control. What's the next step in this effectiveness journey?
That's where habit 2 comes in. Begin with the end in mind. This one's all about having a clear vision of where you want to go before you even take a step.
Okay, begin with the end in mind. That sounds like some serious planning. I'm more of a go with the flow type, to be honest. Convince me why this is important.
Imagine you're building a house. Would you start laying bricks without a blueprint?
Definitely not. Chaos would ensue.
Right.
So, you're saying we need a mental blueprint for our lives?
That's exactly. Covey suggests a powerful exercise. Envision your own funeral. What would you want people to say about you? What legacy would you want to leave behind? It forces you to think about your values and the impact you want to make.
Okay, that's a little morbid, but definitely thought-provoking. So I've got my proactive mindset and I've got my vision. What's next? How do I actually put all this into action? All right, I'm feeling motivated. I've got my proactive mindset. I've envisioned my ideal funeral. And now I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. Where does habit 3, put first things first, fit into all of this?
It's the bridge between your big picture vision and your daily actions. It's about making sure your time and energy are aligned with what truly matters most to you, not just reacting to whatever screams loudest.
Okay, I'm intrigued. This sounds like the holy grail of time management.
Hmm.
But I bet it goes deeper than just using a fancy planner, right?
Definitely. Covey introduces this tool called the time management matrix, and it's seriously eye-opening. He divides activities into 4 quadrants based on urgency and importance.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the magic happens in one of those quadrants, I'm guessing.
exactly. Quadrant 2 is where it's at. Activities that are important, but not urgent. These are things that contribute to your long-term goals, your values, your overall well-being, but they often get pushed aside because they don't have a screening deadline.
So things like planning, relationship building, personal development, they matter hugely in the long run, but don't always feel urgent in the moment.
Precisely. And that's where the trap lies. We get sucked into quadrant 1, those urgent AD important crises, or worse, quadrant 3, stuff that feels urgent because other people want it from us, but isn't truly important to our goals.
Okay, I'm starting to see where I go wrong. So how do we break free from that cycle and start prioritizing those quadrant 2 activities?
It requires a conscious shift. First, you need a clear understanding of your values and goals. That ties back to habit 2. Then it's about actively scheduling those quadrant 2 activities into your week, even if it means saying no to other demands.
Ugh, there's that proactive muscle from habit 1 again. But I have to admit, saying no is tough, especially when it's to things that feel urgent or when you're letting other people down.
It is tough, but think about it. Every time you say yes to something that's not truly aligned with your priorities, you're essentially saying no to something that is important to you.
That's a powerful way to look at it. Okay, so we've tackled the private victories,
Mm-hmm.
those habits that build personal effectiveness. But Covey doesn't stop there, right? There's a whole other section on interdependence.
You got it. He argues that true effectiveness isn't just about personal mastery, it's also about the ability to work effectively with others. That's where the public victories come in.
So we're shifting gears now, going from me to we. I'm curious, how does this idea of interdependence relate to effectiveness?
Think about it. We live in a world built on relationships. Our successes, both personal and professional, depend on our ability to connect, collaborate, and communicate effectively with others.
That makes sense. And those public victories, as Covey calls them, are built upon the foundation of those private victories.
Exactly. You can't effectively lead others if you haven't learned to lead yourself. Those first 3 habits prepare you for the next 3, which focus on building strong, mutually beneficial relationships.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into these public victories. Let's start with habit 4. Think win-win. This sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I'm guessing there's more to it than just being agreeable.
There's a lot more to it. It's about approaching all your interactions with a mindset of abundance, believing there's enough for everyone to succeed. It's a fundamental shift from that scarcity mentality that often pits people against each other.
So it's not about compromise, where everyone gets a little of what they want, but no one's truly happy.
No, it's about finding solutions where everyone feels genuinely good about the outcome and committed to the plan. It's a collaborative approach that seeks mutual benefit.
I can see how that would be a game changer in so many situations, both at work and in personal relationships. But let's be honest, sometimes people are out to get you or they just have completely different goals. How do you apply think win-win in those situations?
That's where the art of negotiation and creative problem solving comes in. It's about understanding the other person's needs and finding ways to align those needs with your own. It's not always easy, but it's always worth striving for.
It sounds like it takes a lot of empathy and understanding. Is that where habit 5 comes in?
You're right on track. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, is all about empathetic communication. It's the key to unlocking those win-win solutions.
Okay, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I can see how that's important, but isn't that just common sense? Don't we all try to understand each other?
Covey argues that most of us don't actually listen to understand. We listen to reply. We're so busy formulating our own response in our heads that we don't truly hear what the other person is saying, both intellectually and emotionally.
Ouch, that hits close to home. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. So, what does it actually mean to listen empathetically? How do you do it?
It starts with putting aside your own agenda, even for a moment, and genuinely trying to see things from the other person's perspective. Try to understand their logic, their emotions, their underlying needs. It's about asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you hear, and validating their feelings.
That sounds like a lot more work than just waiting for your turn to talk, but I can see how it would build trust and create a more open dialogue.
Absolutely. By seeking first to understand, you create a safe space for honest communication and collaboration. It lays the groundwork for finding those creative win-win solutions.
This is making me rethink a lot of my interactions. Okay, so we've got think win-win and seek first to understand. What's the final piece of this public victory puzzle?
That would be habit 6, synergize. This habit builds on the previous two by emphasizing the power of creative collaboration. It's about recognizing that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay, synergy. It's one of those business buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean in practice?
Imagine a team of people with diverse perspectives, skills, and experiences coming together to solve a problem. When they genuinely listen to each other, respect each other's ideas, and build on each other's strength, they can create solutions that wouldn't be possible individually. That's synergy in action.
So it's more than just teamwork.
hmm
It's about tapping into a collective creativity that emerges when people feel safe to share their unique perspectives.
Exactly. Covey uses this analogy of a musical group. Each instrument has its own unique sound, but when played together in harmony, they create something beautiful and far more powerful than any single instrument could achieve alone.
I love that analogy. It really captures the essence of synergy. Okay, so we've covered the first 6 habits. We've got the foundation of personal effectiveness with those private victories. And now we've built upon that foundation with the public victories of interdependence. Is there anything else we need to know to complete the roadmap to effectiveness?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, from personal paradigms to the power of synergy. But there's one last habit, and I have to admit, this one always kind of intrigued me. Sharpen the saw. It sounds a bit cryptic. What's the big idea behind this final habit?
It's the habit that makes all the others possible, really. Think of it as sustainable effectiveness. You can't keep running on fumes, right? You need to take care of yourself to keep performing at your best.
Okay, so it's about self-care, but probably on a deeper level than bubble baths and face masks. What does sharpen the saw actually entail?
Covey breaks it down into 4 key dimensions: physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional. It's about nurturing all aspects of yourself so you can operate at your peak potential. All right, let's break those down. Starting with the physical, that's probably the most straightforward, right? It's about eating well, exercising, getting enough sleep.
It is about those things. But it's not just about looking good in a swimsuit. It's about having the energy and vitality to tackle your goals, to show up fully in your life. When you're physically depleted, your mental and emotional capacity suffers too.
Yeah, that makes sense. So those early morning workouts and healthy meals are actually investments in my effectiveness, not just vanity projects. I like that reframing. What about the spiritual dimension? I'll admit that one always felt a bit fuzzy to me.
It is definitely less tangible than the physical, but it's equally important. It's about connecting with your core values, finding meaning and purpose in your life. This can involve meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, or engaging in activities that inspire you and connect you to something bigger than yourself.
I think this ties back to habit 2, begin with the end in mind. When you have a clear sense of your values and purpose, it fuels everything else. It's like your internal compass.
Exactly. It's about nurturing your inner self so you can live with integrity and intention. Now, for the mental dimension, this is where things get really exciting. It's about expanding your mind, challenging your assumptions, and keeping your brain engaged.
So reading, learning new skills, having stimulating conversations, basically anything that keeps those mental gears turning.
You got it. It's about being a lifelong learner, constantly seeking new knowledge and perspectives. It's like sharpening a knife. The more you use it and hone it, the more effective it becomes.
All right, that covers physical, spiritual, and mental. What about the social emotional dimension? I'm guessing this ties in with the public victories we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. This dimension is all about cultivating healthy relationships, developing empathy, and honing your emotional intelligence. It's about being able to connect with others on a deeper level, to build trust, and to navigate the complexities of human interaction.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Sharpen the saw is like the glue that holds all the other habits together. It's about taking care of yourself holistically so you can show up as the best version of yourself in every area of your life.
That's a brilliant insight. It's about recognizing that effectiveness isn't just about what you do, it's also about who you are. And that requires continuous growth and renewal in all these dimensions.
This whole deep dive has been incredibly illuminating. I'm feeling inspired to revisit those sections you highlighted and see them through this new lens. I have a feeling I'll get even more out of them now.
That's fantastic. Remember, the journey of personal growth is ongoing. It's not about reaching a destination, it's about embracing the process of continuous learning and improvement.
Absolutely. One thing that really strikes me is how interconnected these habits are. It's not about perfecting any one habit in isolation, it's about weaving them all together into a tapestry of effectiveness.
That's the beauty of Covey's work. It's a holistic framework for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life. It's not just about achieving success, it's about becoming a better person in every sense of the word.
Well, after this deep dive, I'm feeling energized and ready to put some of these principles into practice. I might even dust off my old copy of Seven Habits and give it another read. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Remember, effectiveness is a choice. And by embracing these habits, you've empowered yourself to create a life that's both successful and fulfilling.
Beautifully said. And to all our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights and inspiration. Keep sharpening those saws. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of knowledge and ideas.